Step into a world of romance and mystery with Tamora Rose. Today we're reading part 2 of chapter 15 of Child of the Wind. It doesn't look quite as spectacular as you described, Canace said as they paused on the rise overlooking Barsland Manor. No, Jet squinted, trying to see more than the distance would allow. It used to shine. From here it looks a little drab. Canace bit her lip in worry. Do you think something happened? I can't imagine what. Any major problem should have been reported to my father. Since she knew almost nothing about the workings of an estate, Canace fell silent. Frowning to herself, she followed Jet as he made his way closer to the gates that stood open. They'd been on Barsland land for several hours, but they'd yet to see a soul. A few deer or rabbit, but no people, sheep, or even horses. It was more than curious. They entered through unguarded gates and noticed the gates themselves were rusted and hanging at an odd angle. The courtyard featured broken stones and a fountain that had seen better days. The wall surrounding the estate was crumbling, allowing dogs to move about freely. A dead chicken lay nearby, clearly the victim of one of the wandering hounds. And not one person came to meet them. What's going on? Canace asked. Jet dismounted, but held up a hand when she went to do the same. Stay mounted, just in case. She swallowed heavily and even trembled a bit, but did as she was told. Her eyes followed him as he mounted the steps and pulled open the wide double doors to the manor. The interior was dark, and when he stepped within, she could no longer see him. Jet, she called out, voice wavering just a bit. Don't worry, he called back. I'm not going anywhere. True to his word, he re-emerged a moment later. Jet didn't say a word as he lifted Canace from the saddle and placed her gently on the ground. Canace couldn't take the silence for long. Is anyone here? Someone is. He gathered the reins of both horses in one hand and reached out for her with the other. Stay close to me. I don't want to lose sight of you. Since she didn't intend to lose sight of him either, she only nodded and took his outstretched hand. Together they approached the stables, which were also dark. And they smelled of manure. Canace usually enjoyed the smell of the stables, but these hadn't been cleaned in months at the very least. Her stomach turned over itself at the overpowering smell. Stay here and hold the horses, Jet instructed as he handed her the reins. I won't go far. Because the horses took so little attention, she was free to worry as Jet disappeared into the stables. 2 minutes, maybe 3, passed before she heard a commotion inside. Her gut tightened and she wondered if she should perhaps call out to him, maybe even go looking for him. She was still trying to decide what exactly she should do when Jet reappeared, dragging a ragged groom with him. The man struggled a bit, but he was no match for Jet's raw strength. When her betrothed tossed the groom at her feet, he could do little more than curl up in a ball and hope the very angry lord didn't kill him. This is the Countess of Barsland, Jet snapped. She owns every bit of land you see, including the stables you have so neglected. Her horse must be tended to. The man, who must be the first groom Jet could find, cowered as the powerful lord moved away and took up a pitchfork. He must have thought the pitchfork would be used to end his life, because when it was thrown to the ground beside him, the man visibly relaxed. Clean up that mess. Jet gave the groom a kick in the direction of the stables. The groom scrambled away, practically on all fours, until he disappeared into the dark interior. Canace gave Jet a dark scowl. Must you be so rough? Those stalls are a foot deep with muck, Jet replied softly. No effort was made to keep them clean. Horses had been moved from one stall to the other without any care for their health or comfort. Not that there are many horses to begin with. But he's just a groom, she protested. The head groom. I highly recommend you dismiss him from your service. He saw the objection forming on her lips, but continued anyway. If you don't, I will, as soon as we say our vows. The look in his eyes and deadly calm in his voice made her realize she was in the wrong. Canace bit her lip, but refused to admit her error. Instead, she just looked away. That was enough of an admission for Jet. Deciding to let it go, he took the reins from her hands and moved off a bit. This would give her some space and allow him to tether the horses. As soon as the horses were secure, he returned to her side. It's very important that you accept everything I'm about to do, Jet instructed as he tucked her hand in the crook of his arm. You must not be seen to disagree with me. If you don't like something I've said or done, take it up with me in private, not in front of the servants here. Why? She certainly didn't like being told to hold her tongue. Jet led her toward the wide double doors of the manor. We must present a united front. Barsland has been allowed to deteriorate, and that is not acceptable. Laziness must not be tolerated, and I mean to set things right before sunset. If I'm to do that, you can't argue with me every step of the way. They'll lose respect for both of us. That made a certain amount of sense, so Canace glanced up at him. But I can still argue with you in private. His chuckle was deep and genuine. You can, and I imagine you will. Let's save it for later. Her laughter joined his, but their amusement fled as they entered the manor. It was dark in here, so Jet pushed open both doors, swinging them wide and allowing as much light inside as possible. While he did that, Canace pulled back curtains that clearly hadn't been cleaned in years, unleashing clouds of dust that made her cough. "Where is everyone?" she asked as she tried to stop hacking. He started to shake his head, then paused. "Listen. I don't hear anything." "Listen harder." And there it was. Faintly she could indeed hear something. It sounded almost like a child whining, or perhaps a woman whimpering. "Where is it coming from?" Canace practically whispered. Putting an arm around her waist, he led her to where he thought the sound might be originating. "Stay right with me." This wasn't the first time he'd said that, but this time his voice was filled with an urgency that made her take him seriously. He knew something she didn't, something he wasn't going to share with her. He moved quickly, so quickly Canace was almost forced to run to keep up with him, but he didn't seem to notice. A moment later, he was throwing open the door to what might have been a study at one point. Now it housed a table, a chair, various bits of discarded food, and 2 people. The woman was face down across the table, naked and crying. The man, who was far more than portly, was behind her, hands on her hips as he took her. Before Canace could really take it all in, Jet was moving. He vaulted over the table, grabbed the man by the back of his stained doublet, and shoved his head into the stone mantel above the blazing fireplace. There was a sickening thud, followed by a groan as the man slipped to the floor. Jet whirled around, pulled a dirty blanket from the floor, and wrapped the woman in it. "Canace." When she didn't respond, Jet raised his voice. "Canace, take the woman into the hall. Stay with her there, but don't wander off." Shaking off the fear that had paralyzed her, Canace jumped forward, grabbed the woman, and practically dragged her out the door. Once in the hall, they both sank to the floor, panting. Glancing over at the bruised and battered woman, Canace got a hold of herself. It was the woman who needed help, the woman who'd been assaulted. She wasn't hurt. The woman was. Deciding it was time to stop being ridiculous, Canace placed a hand on the woman's arm. "What's your name?" "Dolly," the woman answered, speaking only barely above a whisper. "How old are you?" 17. 2 years older than Canace was herself, but watching the woman sob and tremble, she felt older by at least a decade. Was there something she could do to help the woman? "Can I help?" She'd never dealt with a woman who'd been raped before, and so was unsure of herself. "Do you need a doctor?" Was this the kind of thing women saw a doctor for? She just didn't know. But Dolly shook her head. "No, it wasn't as horrible as it must have seemed, and it wasn't the first time. I just need a moment, my lady." Canace blinked in surprise. "How do you know I bear such a title?" The woman might have laughed if she hadn't been crying. "Your dress, your speech, even the way you move. You are a lady for sure." "Oh." Another thud came from the room they'd vacated, and she flinched. "I think perhaps my betrothed is being a little rough with your companion." "He deserves it." Dolly's voice was bitter. "The steward has been abusing women of the manor for a decade." "That's my steward." Though she tried, it was impossible for Canace to keep the horror out of her voice. "What happened here?" "You're the Countess of Barsland." Dolly also sounded horrified, but not for the same reason. "My lady, I apologize," but Canace was already shaking her head. "Please don't. Just tell me what happened here." "I'd like an answer to that as well." Jet exited the study, pulled the door closed behind him, and urged both women to their feet. "But first, you need something to wear. Are there others here?" Dolly nodded as she gathered the blanket closer. "Yes, my lord, but not many. Most of them are the steward's men. The servants spend most of their time hiding. Gather them up and meet us in the dining hall, quickly. But the steward's men just do it." With a frown and an awkward curtsy, Dolly hurried off. Canace squirmed closer until Jet finally put an arm around her. "What do we do now?" He smiled down at her. We gather the servants together, record the complaints they have against the steward and his men, and set things to rights. What about the steward? There had been no sound from behind the study door. He won't be going anywhere for a while. She wanted to ask how badly the man was hurt, but decided she didn't really want to know. Perhaps he'd killed the man. Did she care? Remembering Dolly's pain-filled cries, she decided she did not. As Jet led her away from the study, Canace dismissed the steward from her mind. "Where's the dining hall?" she asked, being thoroughly unfamiliar with her ancestral home. "And why is everything so bare and dirty?" It was true, he realized. Floors were strewn with dirt, torn books, and even the occasional dried leaf from outside. But the furniture, paintings, and even the chandeliers he remembered from his childhood were all missing. The halls and rooms should have been bright and decorated with the most expensive pieces. Instead, they were dark and empty. "Come," Jet said, guiding Canace toward where he knew the dining hall was. When they got there, they both paused on the threshold and just stared. The dining table, which had once gleamed in the candlelight, was broken practically in half. What chairs remained were overturned and scattered around the room. Dust and dirt abounded, and there was something Jet knew to be blood on the floor, fairly fresh blood. He could smell it. He only hoped Canace could not. "They had a ram sticking," came Dolly's soft voice behind them. "Just yesterday." Canace swallowed hard. "Is a ram sticking?" "It's exactly what it sounds like." Jet decided she didn't need him to elaborate. "Come." She followed him and sat in a chair he had righted for her. When he turned and began addressing the servants who had gathered, all 6 of them, she remained silent. In truth, she had no idea what to say. Her home, the place she was to share with her husband after the wedding, was a mess. How could it ever recover? Just the thought, the uncertainty of it all, caused a single tear to slip down her cheeks. Her eyes fluttered upward until she could focus on her betrothed. He was leaning against a nearby wall, seemingly casual, speaking to one of the male servants. The man looked ancient and had blood on his right arm. The expression on Jet's face slowly shifted to one of outrage, but Canace couldn't make out the quiet words he spoke. She thought maybe she heard the word trial, but she could have been mistaken. When Jet left the servant and came to kneel before her, Canace sniffled. "It's all right," Jet whispered as he wiped away the tear. "Everything will be all right. I promise." "How can you promise that?" Her words ended with a sob. "Come." He swung her up into his arms and told Dolly to follow them. A few minutes later, they stood in the Lord's bedchamber. There wasn't much here, not even the bed the old Earl had once occupied. There were a few pillows and a ratty blanket, as well as a broken table, but nothing that would serve as a decent place to put his betrothed. So Jet set her on her feet near the blackened fireplace and called Dolly forward. "The horses outside are carrying bedding. Have someone fetch it." He glanced around the dirty bedchamber and frowned. "And see what you can do about the state of this room. It's unacceptable for a countess to sleep in such squalor." The servant blushed because it was true. There was no excuse for the condition of the manor. Even though it had been the steward who had sold the furnishings and destroyed what was left, the servants could have at least kept the place clean. The thought made her tremble. Jet saw it. "You have nothing to fear from me. Just see to my betrothed. Now where might I find the steward's men?" "They'll be out amongst the people, my lord," she breathed. "Trying to get more money, calling it all taxes, but we know the steward hoards every bit he can find." "And where does he keep this hoard?" "I don't know, my lord." And she didn't. The steward had been careful that none of the servants knew where he hid everything he'd stolen from the locals. "Very well." Waving her away, he moved towards Canace. "Canace, I must leave you for a while." That got her attention. "No, I cannot stay here alone." Her body trembled, so Jet gathered her close. "You will be safe, I promise you. But I must go. There was no one else here who can put your ancestral home back together again. Do you understand?" She did, but she didn't like it. Awful things had happened here, and it was up to them to fix it all. Since she had no idea how to go about fixing anything, it really fell to Jet. When she finally nodded, Jet dropped a quick kiss on her forehead and departed, leaving her standing in the empty chamber with naught but a servant for company. That's it for today. If you enjoyed this chapter, stay tuned for more tales of romance. Until we meet again, may your days be filled with passion and just a touch of magic.